Welcome back to Armed Citizens TV. My name is Marty Hayes. I'm the president of the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network, and we're filming this in conjunction with the Armed Citizens Educational Foundation. With me again is Massad Ayoob, the director of the Massad Ayoob Group and one of the most sought-after legal experts in the country involving both civilian and police use of force. Welcome back, Mass.
Thank you, Marty.
And last time we were together, we filmed a short segment on winning the race to the phone, making sure that you become the victim / complainant when you call the police to report this incident, this crime against you. Now we need to explore what to say to the police and what not to say to the police when they show up to investigate that crime that you reported. And it's not the crime that you committed, it's the crime that was being committed against you that you need to discuss with the police.
That's the critical thing. Back in the early 1980s, I came up with what I call the 5-point checklist of things that need to be established. You need to bear in mind this is not a script. Never try to give a memorized statement to law enforcement. Nobody has better BS detectors than cops. And when they detect a rehearsed statement, the eyes are going to glaze over and your credibility is already on the downslide. So what we're talking about here are 5 things that need to be established at the scene. And depending on what's happened, you'll find your own words for those. First, establish what I call the active dynamic. And that's not the fact that you had to shoot him in. The active dynamic is whatever he did that caused you to shoot him or draw a gun or whatever has happened. This man attacked me. This man attacked my wife. This man was breaking down the front door of my home, whatever it was. If the man has fled, give a description. If, as often happens, there were 2 of them and you've had to put one of them horizontal and the other has fled, describe the one who fled. You're not doing so is going to greatly impair your mantle of innocence, as they call it, if it comes to trial. The other side's going to say, well, gee, you want this jury to believe that you were the innocent party, you were the victim, you were the hero, but you didn't tell the police there was another dangerous suspect out there menacing the public. You're the innocent guy, huh? So obviously what has happened is going to key what you say in that initial statement. Second, indicate that you will testify against this person or you will sign the complaint, whatever the terminology may be in your area. It reinforces that first point, that you were the intended victim who managed to prevail, and the guy laying there on the street in a puddle of blood who looks like a victim was actually the perpetrator. Third, point out evidence. Shooting scenes become absolutely chaotic. In the dark humor of law enforcement, paramedics are sometimes referred to as the evidence eradication team. In any sort of public safety profession, fire service, police service, or emergency medical service, preservation of life takes priority over everything else. People are going to be trampling that scene. A dropped weapon, dropped by your attacker, may disappear. We've seen in one case that I worked, the gun at the scene was kicked up a driveway by a paramedic who was afraid of guns, and now completely altered the dimensions of the shooting scene. And it wound up going to a full-blown murder trial before we were able to finally acquit and exonerate the person who had fired to defend himself and his little girl. We've seen cases where spent brass was kicked out of the way. We did one case where we were able to show that 2 spent casings had been picked up either in the treads of the emergency responders' boots or the treads of the gurney that was rolled right through the evidence field where the 7 spent .45 ACP casings were. 2 of those casings wound up some 40 feet away where the original assailant fell and ultimately died. That led the prosecution to believe he must have been shot 5 times at the first scene and then followed for 40 feet and executed with 2 more coup de grace shots. And it took us a full-blown murder trial to show that was not the case and to win the acquittal for the shooter. And those things are not only expensive financially, but it's absolutely torturous to you and your family to have to go through. Be able to point out the evidence before it disappears, because evidence is perishable, evidence is ephemeral. Fourth, point out the witnesses. Since the tragic murder of Kitty Genovese in 1963 in New York, sociologists have recognized the "I don't want to get involved" syndrome. More than 38 people heard that young woman screaming, "He's stabbing me, help me, help me." None of them called the police until it was too late, and she died. That syndrome is alive and well today. You want the officers to know who saw this so they can get the testimony as to what happened that would confirm your innocence, that would confirm you were the intended victim who turned the tables and fired in self-defense. Finally, it's at that point that I would go with the advice of answering no further questions. Not, I ain't going to tell you nothing till my mouthpiece gets here, but officer, you'll have my full cooperation after I've spoken with counsel. And remember, you do have to request counsel. Remain calm. You're going to be upset. It may be the most stressful thing in your life. Literally, why did you shoot in self-defense if it wasn't a near-death experience for you and your loved ones? Now, I hear people say, gee, I won't be able to remember those 5 things. And it's hard for me to keep a straight face. Let me get this straight. You just prevailed against an apex predator and put him horizontal. You were able to manage that. You were able to manage how many steps was it exactly to clear your coat, access your weapon, present your weapon, index your weapon, fire the shots, and win that battle to the death. But somehow now you're going to melt into a pile of mental diarrhea and be unable to remember 5 simple things. You already remembered way more than 5 things in being able to prevail in the first place. Remember these 5 things, and it can help keep you and your family out of that absolute nightmare of the misunderstood shooting, the false accusations, and the very expensive, long-lasting torment that comes from those things.
Okay, thank you, Mass. I appreciate that wise input, and we will see you next time on Armed Citizens TV.